us, and thank you for taking the time to join us for this webinar, which I believe is going to be an incredibly timely conversation. We have a fantastic panel today, and the title of the panel is Work Redefined, What Employees in the UAE Really Want Now. And I think the title itself poses an interesting question. Has work really changed, or have employee expectations finally caught up with what people have always wanted from work? For many years, organisations have competed on salary, benefits, job titles. Success was often measured by tenure, promotions, and financial rewards. Today, those things still matter, but increasingly, they're no longer enough. Employees are asking different questions. Questions like, can I grow here? Will I be trusted? Does my manager invest in me? Can I be successful without sacrificing my well-being? Burnout is a key topic that we'll also talk about. And do I understand how my work contributes to something greater? At the same time, organisations face pressures of their own. Businesses are trying to improve productivity, manage costs, build new capabilities, adapt to AI, deliver transformation, and also meet localised agendas, all whilst competing for increasingly scarce talent. So perhaps the real question isn't whether employee expectations have changed, it's whether organisations have changed quickly enough. Today's discussion isn't just about adding another employee benefit or introducing another wellbeing initiative. It's about understanding what genuinely creates an organisation where people choose to join, stay, and perform at their best. We have three fantastic panelists with us today, each bringing a different perspective from leadership, HR, and organisational development. I will pass over to each of our panelists to introduce themselves, and I'm going to throw to Liesbeth. Can I hand over to you first?
Yes, hi Greg, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity of speaking here today. Yes, my name is Liesbeth. I've been in the UAE for almost 20 years, and I've been navigating through different industries from manufacturing into market research for luxury brands, and then security, and then facilities management / construction now. So I've been experiencing different environments where, of course, you know, the role of the operations of the workforce, blue-collar workforce, is very, very important for the organization's success, you know. So I've been experiencing the white collars and blue collars and their needs in the workplace. It's been an exciting journey so far, and yes, and a continuous learning, actually, also as the time changes here in the UAE.
Thank you. Louise.
Hi everyone, my name's Louise Gutteridge. I'm the head of people and culture at Langham. Langham is an arts, culture and heritage consultancy. So when you visit some of the museums or art galleries, exhibitions in the UAE, the big dinosaurs that you'll see in the Natural History Museum in Abu Dhabi are all down to us. So I've been in the UAE for the last 15 years, not quite as long as Liesbeth. Working in luxury retail. I also had a period of time working for Let's Talk Talent, which is where I met Joe and also met Liesbeth as well. So I feel like I've been on both sides of the table. And at the moment, I'm specialising in workplace culture and wellbeing. So really interested to hear from Joe and from Liesbeth today about the impacts of wellbeing within the UAE at the moment. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks, Louise. And Joe.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much. And I'm really proud to be on this panel today with Liesbeth and Louise. I've known them for quite a while, and they've seen us kind of grow as a business. I'm the MD and founder of Let's Talk Talent. I've had a very squiggly career. Starting off in the media industry and then moving into global talent and development for telecoms. So while I reside in the UK, the UAE is an important cornerstone of our development as a business. And I'm really proud to be able to bring our ethos to the UAE, and I look forward to working with organizations and individuals. Our motto at Let's Talk Talent is we help organizations get, keep and grow brilliant people. So I'm excited to not only learn today, but also add experience having worked in global organizations, both in-house and as a consultant for probably the late about 30 years. That's why my hair is redder than it's ever been, but I'm excited to dive in today. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jo. And by way of introduction, I'm Craig. I'm the Sales and Operations Director here at Let's Talk Talent. I'm going to be your host today, so I'm going to be throwing questions at the panel today, but we'd love for this session to be as interactive as possible. So feel free to ask or add any questions into the chat. Please do comment, agree, or even challenge the panel on what we're discussing, so that we can really make the most of our time together today, because we've got about 45 minutes and we're going to try and maximize as much of that time as possible. And one of the reasons I was particularly looking forward to today's session or discussion is that there's no shortage of articles, surveys, opinions about the future of work. But today's conversation isn't about theory. It's about real people talking about what's really happening inside organizations across the UAE. So I'm going to take the slides down and we're going to start exploring some of the questions, because we don't want to look at slides. We want to look at the amazing panelists and really delve into what they're talking about. So we're going to start by exploring what each of you are seeing on the ground. And I'd like to start with a view of what's actually changed. So Liesbeth, I'd like to come to you first, if possible. And the question I'd like to ask to kick us off is, what are the biggest shifts that you've seen in what employees in the UAE want from their employers?
Yeah, so that's a great question, especially considering the times we're in at this moment, right? So what I've seen is more than the salary and the benefits. What the employees are looking for is actually, the sense of security and safety in the workplace, in the sense that if I join this employer, can I stay here for long term? Can I trust this employer? What can this employer offer me aside from salary and benefits? As I just mentioned, our workforce is made of mostly blue collars, and we have people support days. And the frequent questions that the workers ask us is, what is next for me, right? So it is not development and opportunities and career opportunities of advancement opportunities. It's not just a matter that is important for white collar employees, but also for blue collar employees. And we need to be very vocal on what we can offer, right? Because we need to show our employees what is the future we offer them in the organization. And this is what they're actually looking, because, when they join us, they need to know that this is where they start, right? And then what is there for them later on. And we need to be very transparent for them in this perspective. So I think that, and overall, the sense of, I'm investing in this company, part of my life, my time, my years, and so what is the company giving back to me aside from salary? And of course, that they have to be on time, correct, and good, and competitive, yes, and the benefits as well, but then career-wise, and that sense of security and being participant to the life of the organization as well.
Great, thanks, Liesbeth. And look, that sense of security, safety, looking for more is something that we're going to explore a little bit deeper. But I'd like to almost look at the same coin from a different perspective. So, Jo, you see and speak with clients from the side of a consultancy or a consulting business. So does that resonate with you, that what you're seeing from your side around the expectations of what employees are asking you from a consulting owner?
Yeah, I think Lisbeth's spot on. I think it's moved away from sort of T's and C's. I think it's much more about, I think there's four things. The first is careers. So we're seeing 9 times out of 10 people wanting to know where they can go and want that consistency, and they want that fairness. So I think with an inclusion lens, being really transparent about what the opportunity is, whether that's through your EVP or whether that's through really great managers or career pathways, I think is important. And if you don't show people where they can go and you unlock the potential, then you're really short-termist and you're only thinking about what that person can do for you now. So they become a commodity. I think that's really changed. I think the second is community. and definitely in the UAE, I'm seeing that the people that you work with, the community, the relationships are critical, not only in you feeling like you can be trusted, that you've got kind of psychological safety, that you're valued, but also that you're part of a community, and that hybrid or virtual or remote or actually office has become a really big way of attracting or detracting from whether talent will join you. The third is, I think, cause. I think people want to feel, and you get into the whole generational debate, which I'm sure we're going to get into. People want to feel that they're working for something with purpose. So whether you believe in purpose over profit, or that you believe in the purpose that you feel that you can make a difference in whatever way that is, I think has really dialed up since COVID. And the way that you attract talent is based, I think, much more on the cause and what you're giving back in terms of well-being and in terms of environmental than anything. And I think the final thing that I would say that we're seeing is the role of managers and leaders. I think if you've got managers and leaders who believe, who communicate, who build that trust, who create an environment where people can grow, that aren't talent scouts rather than talent hoarders, I think we're definitely seeing those businesses win in that talent race. And that, while I think some of them have been existing for 10, 15 years, I think some of them have become more important. And it's those businesses that really understand them and see where they are that are going to really attract the best people going forward.
And I think you've described exactly why the role of managers is definitely getting more challenging, and that's probably more of a global perspective as well as a localized in the UAE. But I really like the triangle that you created there. It's a lovely forming of a strategy, which is careers, community, and cause coming together, which I think is a really nice one. And Louisa, I want to come to you as well, which is from your perspective, if you look at the shifts that have happened, is there anything you'd add or perhaps challenge that Joe or Liesbeth has said so far?
Yeah, I don't think we can deny that compensation is a big driver in this market. It's probably just not the only driver. I remember working in luxury retail, and we used to have employees leave us and decide to leave for 500 dirhams more a month. And that was, the reality. And I think that will continue to be the reality, because I think we all know, and the people on this call will also know, and give me a thumbs up on the chat if you're true. It's, it's an expensive place to live. We still need to be offering, competitive compensation policies and terms and conditions and all of the benefits that come along with that. But it's actually, from a recent survey, it's not the most important thing. And I think that has been the latest shift. It is important, but it's not the most important thing. The most important thing at the moment, according to a recent survey here in the UAE, was really about flexible working. And I think that's really where we've got a lot of work to do, because we wouldn't have ever talked about flexible working when I first arrived in this country 15 years ago. And that's, it's a generational shift, it's a time shift. So financial compensation is never going away, but what can we add on? What can we layer on top of that as well?
And that perspective of compensation, security, safety is coming through exactly. But I'd love to go very quickly just into that flexible working again. What sort of flexible working requests are you getting? Just so we can paint that picture of what flexible working really means.
Well, I could talk about this for hours, because I think particularly when I first joined Barker Langham 3 years ago, our founders sat with me and said they want to introduce a 4-day week. And I nearly fell off my chair, because it's normally HR people that are coming to founders and saying, why don't we do a 4-day week? And we actually moved to a 9-day fortnight. So we work on a 9-day fortnight program across the whole of the organization. We just tweak it slightly for Saudi, obviously with the working days. And the reason why we did this is because we consulted with the staff. I sat down with them, we had some focus groups, we ran some surveys, and they just did not believe that our organization could work on a 4-day working week. They thought it would drive burnout. They thought our clients would be frustrated. and they said, why don't we trial a 9-day fortnight, which is what we did. I think we all know that Fridays are slightly slower or slower pace here. So it didn't really affect productivity, but it really has affected employee advocacy. So 88% of our employees would say that we care about their work-life balance. 98% say that we're a great place to work. We won a Sunday Times best place to work in 2025 and then in SME. And for me, it's not really about, I wouldn't go to come and say to Liesbeth's organisation and say, I think you should implement a 9-day fortnight. It was what was right for our business. But, simple things like we all know the traffic is terrible here in the UAE.
Yeah.
Having flexible start times would really help people. These are things that are in your control. It's not as going as far as a 4-day week, but it's just saying we care. We see that you're a person that has got to battle down Sheikh Zayed Road. You've got to do, school drop off, manage all of those things. Even just a flexible start time in the morning could just be a really nice way of showing that you're listening and that you're understanding the teams of the pressures about what it's like to live in this city.
Yeah. And if I may, the UAE has really progressed over the past 20 years in the concept of the working week. I remember when I came here, the working week was Thursday and Friday were the days off, then Friday and Saturday, and then one day it was Saturday, Sunday, right? And so this agility also of organizations to get, used to the new setup, has been incredible. And then we witnessed it also during COVID, how in such an agile way, everyone adapted to the new circumstances, right? And as you said, Louise, also nowadays here, it's so difficult to be on time all the time, right? Because of traffic, and I think that yes, over the years, the organizations are really reflecting the culture of the UAEs of being innovative, open-minded, flexible, but at the same time organized, So yeah, so it's really great. So congratulations to you, by the way, for the award. Yeah.
It's interesting, isn't it? How really a lot of the time we're seeing trends where everybody needs to conform to one way. What's amazing about what you've been describing is how it's about individualizing experiences. Yeah. So what would work for Langham won't necessarily work for Liesbeth's organization, or might work for, I see a few people on the, from other organizations. It's understanding who your people are. And I think that data and the insights that we have are so much greater than they perhaps were 10 years ago, or when I started in HR 30 years ago. There's kind of no excuse, is there, to not look at the data and be able to be adapt, and the pace of the UAE is just extraordinary. You can feel it, but having that data to sort of back it up and be able to understand what that means in conjunction with your business, the try before you buy sort of thing. I have to applaud that, because you don't necessarily see that in other in other areas across the globe.
We've seen this new campaign in Dubai, and you must have seen it out in social media, called Dubai It, which is just like go and do it. And I think it's a great example of like just going and trying it. Like, it could have been a disaster, but what turned into a pilot is now a permanent working pattern for all of our colleagues across the Middle East. So yeah, we just tried it out, and I think sometimes almost showing that humility to be able to say, we really wanted to try this. But obviously we had to put things in that were quite innovative. Like, we only have 50-minute meetings. We make sure that everyone has 10 minutes between each meeting. There are things that you can do to sort of build in that isn't just about everyone having every other Friday off. It's also about the mechanics of how we work, and about trying to manage people's energy levels, thinking about whether they come to the office or whether they work at home, or whether they work a combination of the two. So yeah, we have Dubai'd it. We've tried it out, and it's been working really well. And I wouldn't necessarily recommend it to every company, but it was just part of our HR strategy. It's part of our offering. And the reason why, we're a group of HR professionals, we don't pay top of market salaries. I will completely tell you and be very clear that we don't pay top of band, but people stay with us because of the wellbeing benefits that we provide.
And Louise, I hope you don't mind me saying, you sound very close to the data, and you've done amazing amounts of research by the sounds of it. So I'm going to come to you now around some of that expectation gap, because it sounds like you've got this right, but you must have done some research around where people are not getting it right, or be seeing when people are missing that expectation gap. So what I'd like to know is where do you see the biggest disconnect at the moment, not necessarily in your organisation, but more broadly as well, between what employers offer and where employee expectations are?
Well, I think that this is going to start about the generation discussion, isn't it? About careers and about how quickly people want to move. And I think particularly here in the UAE, people leave their families and their friends and what they're used to move to a country which gives them all of this opportunity. And, one of the things that before I moved here, someone said to me, it was really interesting because everyone wants to succeed here. You only move here if you want to succeed. So that gives people this sort of drive and ambition, which I think organizations need to keep pace with. And I think that's our biggest challenge in terms of careers. And not everyone can be a manager, not everyone can be a director, not everyone can have the corner office and the parking space and all the things that kind of come along with it. But how are we providing opportunities to be able to, with a lot of the work that I used to do with you guys at Let's Talk Talent was about breadth and about giving different opportunities to people. We might not be able to always give the most senior position, but how are we rotating people? What kind of leadership programs are we putting them on? How are we spotting their potential, perhaps moving them into secondments? And I think particularly the younger generation that are perhaps coming across on a lower salaries, trying to really start to build their careers and to build their lives here in the UAE. Lots of them want to buy apartments and live here and put down roots, which obviously the government are encouraging, and we would encourage that as well. But how are we keeping pace with their desire? And I think, that I only work in a small organization, but if I was in a big organization like Liesbeth, I would be thinking, how am I going to keep pace with everyone's expectations and desires to be able to move on? And maybe that's a good way of handing over to Liesbeth and your biggest challenge.
That is a challenge, that is a challenge. But actually, I think that the basis of it is always, listen to your employees, so it's very important to keep the communication open, to really listen to them and tackle, what are the things that come up from their requests. Of course you can't make everyone happy, but for sure you can collect what are their needs and then address them. That is very important. So I remember always that once upon a time I used to do employee surveys, for example, every 2 years at the beginning of my career, because I knew that I needed that time to deliver something concrete, right? And then at a certain point of my career, I was asked, why don't we do it every month? I said, no, every month, because then, really, I want to really show the employees, what we are doing for them. But another great disconnect that I'm facing is especially from an elderly, let's say, generation of leaders who still unconsciously, so they are great promoters of well-being in the workplace, but unconsciously they still, praise the hard work and putting the many hours into work, right? They still recognize this as, the way of an evidence of commitment or really, great potential. So this is one of the great disconnects that I find, and that is now something that I'm actually seeing and trying to work on, right? So, and especially when you welcome the new generation, they do not see like putting the many hours, as a distinction for quality of work. So the shift between we need to actually to develop our leaders to shift from an output in terms of hours more into an output in terms of objectives and quality of work, right? So this is one of the disconnects that I see.
Great, thanks, Liesbeth. And Joe, I'd like to come to you just in regards to touching on that multi-generational workforce, because you have multi-generations, but also a very diverse, multicultural workforce in the UAE.
Yeah.
So how do you make sure you maximize and create engagement across those generational differences, cultural differences out in the UAE at the moment?
So
I don't think there's. I think if I knew the answer, Craig, I'd probably be a very rich woman. So I'm not going to dodge the question. But for me, I've never been a lover, and Louise and Liesbeth will know this. I've never been a lover of putting people into boxes. I've never wanted to be put into a box. I've never been wanted to be hired as a woman of a certain age, of a certain ethnicity. And I think that with 200 plus nationalities in the UAE, I think it's very difficult for HR to not start to put people into boxes. And I would really encourage and to say we need to think about the individual, and we need to think about the business, and we kind of need to bring the two together, because when the disconnect happens, Reid Hoffman created a book years ago when he set up LinkedIn, and he talked about tribes, and Spotify took it on. We kind of have to understand what the different tribes in your organization want. So, I'm a big fan of personas. You use that in retail, around looking at the different personas that exist and thinking about what are, to Liesbeth's point, what are the wants and needs of those different personas, and creating experiences. I'm in about experiences for people that talk to their heads as well as their heart. So you can think that you're creating something from a millennial, but actually, do you really understand there's multiple levels of millennial, within technology, within retail, so I think that we've got to start to think about it from a persona perspective by understanding who actually works within your organization, and then creating experiences for them that make them want to stay and strive, and give them opportunities to do that. So again, I'm going to use the trifecta. I think if we build experiences and give people experience, then they have growth opportunity. If we value their expertise that they're bringing, and give them the skills and capabilities, but we also provide exposure to different cultures, different projects, then in a way, we're enabling people to realize their potential and shift the onus from the three of us as HR professionals and the people on this call back to the person. We've taken on as HR the responsibility, and for me, the responsibility doesn't sit with us. The responsibility sits with the people and obviously the managers as well.
Thanks, Joe. Liesbeth, did you want to add anything into that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that people coming to the UAE for work from wherever they come, and at any level of their educational background or their background, they come with, or they develop that intercultural intelligence, in my opinion, that allow them to really, blend, and work together. So sometimes, I mean, I believe that if somebody stays here for quite a while, this intercultural intelligence develops by itself. But I like to help our employees to develop the intercultural intelligence. So, for example, in every organization I worked, I always had an employee welfare committee. That was, and anyone in the organization can participate to the welfare committee, and it's on a volunteering basis. What I make it really mandatory that they have at least one representative of every department at different levels, right? So that I create, that environment where the needs and the desires of people are really expressed. They come out and they are addressed, and we do lots of activities with the people, for the people, for the people and with the people, for them to feel at home, right? So, and it's important, that in this multicultural, multi-generational, multi-different backgrounds organization, you find that sweet spot that is actually that actually should correspond to the DNA of the organization, right? Because we should all, what we want to have is an organization of people who live the same values, people who are supporting each other, during the good times and the bad times, and that collaboration, and co-creation that, I mean, for me, ignites by itself when you create that kind of environment.
Thank you, Liesbeth. And one thing that shined out from what both you and Joe were saying there for me was the awareness piece, because when we talk about multi-generational, multicultural, the focus is on clashes, frictions, how people can't work together, but actually changing that to a more of a positive spin around how do we maximize that and utilize different experiences together. And I've really liked your intercultural and generational intelligence. I think that's a real great key takeaway. It's a lovely sort of message around how we can come together to make much more of an intelligent organization because of that wider breadth of experience. So thank you for that. I think that's really, really nice. And one of the areas that was touched on, but I want to come back to, was careers and growth, because I know in an in a region where everyone wants to succeed, everyone wants to accelerate. Careers and growth is going to be one of the top factors of which people are going to be asking, requesting for, and driving forward. And I know that it's a frequent talked about employee priority across many regions. But ultimately, sometimes we don't line up on what that actually means. So, Louise, I'd like to come to you first, which is, from your perspective, when employees talk about flexibility and career growth today, what do they actually mean?
Well, it's a really good question to ask them, because it's the first thing I ever listen to is about, well, what do you really mean by growth? Because what does growth mean to you? Or, people talk to me about, I want to be promoted. I was like, what does promotion mean to you? Like, what are you actually chasing in some of, so, trying to understand what it really means, because, perhaps in a small organization, I'm not able to meet every single expectation, and it's okay. I can say, okay, maybe right now we can't meet your expectation, but then that person might leave and find experience somewhere else and come back to us with a more diverse range of experiences. So the first question for me is like, what are you aiming for? What is important in terms of your career? Is it that you have I remember wanting to be an area manager by the time I was 30, that was the goal that I had back then. But then, and I then built my whole kind of career plan off that particular goal. But what really is important, and sometimes it isn't actually about a promotion. A lot of time here in the region, I think it's about recognition and about people being valued for what they bring to the table. So it's not really about being the senior vice president of whatever they are. And, we all love these titles, or some organizations try to throw the titles out of the bin and then, but still kind of, but I think really asking the question about what is it that people are trying to achieve? Is it that they want longevity in terms of their career? Is it that they want to grow? Is it that they want breadth? Is it that they want to go into another area that they want to specialize in? And I think that that's what's so special about the UAE, is that it can give you opportunities to diversify your career. I think we've all seen that in terms of, it really is the land of opportunity, and you can try things out and think slightly differently, and you can accelerate your career. But I think, the old days of giving someone a career path and saying, you'll be automatically promoted after 2 years is not really hitting the mark anymore. Particularly the younger generation don't want to wait for those milestones, don't see why they should have to. And I tend to agree with them. Yes, it's a different world now, but I tend to agree that we shouldn't be putting those milestones in place. But, giving people, some of the work that you guys have done before in terms of not necessarily looking at linear career paths, so vertical career paths, but career paths that can branch off. We've looked at, I remember us doing some work with like constellations, Joe, and there were different kind of career maps. And you did a wonderful project where there was a London Tube map, I remember, with all the different types of careers. And I think we should just have conversations about where people's careers can go. You know, sometimes we just need to step into being that careers coach for a while. Joe, you always introduce yourself by saying that you've had a very squiggly career. You know, that book that we talk about is always recommended in terms of people understanding their career and the entry points and the exit points. So yeah, for me, it's just about having that question: what does it really mean to that individual in terms of their career growth? And then how can we as organizations try and create opportunities that have, we need to train people in delegating effectively, having difficult conversations. We need to do all of this as minimums to be able to help people to be good managers. But then there's an element of tailoring, of doing something, bespoke. And as we were starting this conversation before we went live about AI, that's where AI can definitely give that piece of tailored development for people. So I think it's a combination of understanding what people really want, organizations putting in those frameworks and those development plans, and then we can use AI to sort of tailor individual development plans for people. I think that's probably what I'd recommend.
Yeah. Yes, actually, you're totally right, Louise. And yes, sometimes people want growth, and they think about promotion, but sometimes they don't know what is growth. Actually, they also don't know what is that they want, So for me, over the years, and I was also in your place, right, where I didn't have anything next, right? So sometimes, you need to think a little bit more creatively. Then I realized sometimes that people wanted, when they said they wanted growth, they actually wanted to have space, or an opportunity just to experiment something new, and if we think about our parents, right, they were on the same career in the same organization for years and years and years, and this generation will not be like that, even. And I'm not just talking about the Gen Z, but I'm also talking about the millennials, So, I mean, they want to try something new, and there is nothing wrong to try something new, because, this is also a great opportunity for the organization to bring in some innovation, right? So I think that when people come and tell me about growth, what is next for me, I always think immediately now as a stretched assignment. Shadowing somebody who's going on maternity leave, or somebody who's going for something else, So I think in this manner this time, because I think that maybe this is what they actually are looking for, Then, of course, you have people who want to be promoted just for the financial aspect, But then, of course, once again, it's about listening to what our employees want, Also very important, I also find it very important to find what are the intrinsic motivators of the employees. So, for example, when I hire, especially people in more senior level positions, I always do the psychometrics, and I also always put attention on the motivators, because I know, how I can keep this particular person always motivated and engaged, and when I see that growth and development is there, so I always think about including this person in something new that the organization is going into,
I think it's really interesting, and it's making me think that actually, is the term career the right term anymore? I've always thought that, I've had 3 careers. If you told me when I came out of university, or told my father in effect that I would be running my own business now, he'd have had a laugh. I wasn't academic at school, I kind of like made it up as I went along and fell into went into the media. Had a blast in and I'm on my 3rd career, and I the longest job I've ever had. And I love it for all of those reasons, but I kind of see it as a bit of a journey. Or if you could take the analogy of the chapters in your book, someone said that to me once. Every job is a chapter in your book, and what you get from it will be completely different. And for me, as a business owner, and hopefully working with organizations that share that philosophy, for me, it's about you borrow the people for the time that they work for you, and then you need to set them free. We don't own the people that work for us. We hope that they have loyalty. We hope that we create environments where they can thrive. But at the end of the day, we as HR can't do that. So I think we need to shift the conversation away from career, because I think that that's what we use. I think it's about what's your journey, and move it away from promotion to progression. And then it changes, like you both said, the conversation about, okay, so what are your skills? What are your strengths? Where might that take you? So that we create a generation of people that are open to the possibilities, because that's what drives potential.
Yeah, I agree with you.
I think that that's quite interesting concept and with all the investment that you're making in the 2030 strategy and talent, I think it's a real opportunity to start to use that innovation in the way that we talent manage and develop our talent going forward.
When I interview people, I always ask them like question number 2, what is your ambition? I want to know, right? Because if we want to be a company that, Khansaheb is a 95 years old company, right? But we are a company who's looking into the future, right? So, if you have people who just, they have this career, this is what they want to do, we're looking for people who, want to explore, who are innovative, who have a dream, to pursue. And this is at all levels, right? So now, of course, we just joined them 2 months and a half ago, but very soon I will expand this concept also to the blue-collar workforce.
Love that. And thank you. That's really great insight. And I think we could talk probably all day about careers. But I'm going to pose one final question, and we're conscious of time, so we need to be fairly compact with our responses. So one thing each, if possible. And Louise, I'll throw to you first. But if everyone listening today left and changed one thing tomorrow, what would you recommend that would be, or what would you want it to be?
I think, we've gone through a really tumultuous last few months, and I think the one thing that has anchored my team and continues to anchor teams across the UAE is their purpose. And I was just seeing who we have on this call, and we have someone from an organization that I met many years ago, and I still remember their purpose, and their purpose is to make people healthy, wealthy, and wise. Now, I didn't have to go onto their website and look that up. That is their EVP, both for their employees and for their clients. And that is ingrained in my mind about this organization. And when times get tough, I know that organization's teams are going to be thinking, we are here to make people healthy, wealthy, and wise. And if you can have some values or purpose statement that when the going gets tough, you just tie back to that. And that is one of the best. Hopefully they're still here on the call and can recognize who I'm talking about. But healthy, wealthy, and wise, I just thought was it was a really great EVP, a really great way of us saying, what is the purpose of that organization? Get your purpose statement really clear, put it through all of your EVP, because when the going gets tough, you're going to need to refer to that, and it fits all of your HR strategy around it.
Thanks, Louise. Liesbeth?
Yeah, well, I totally agree with Louise, and I would add another thing. Always, remind every employee in the organization, regardless where they are in the organization or the job they do, that they are one piece of an amazing puzzle, that everyone is in their own role, but the puzzle doesn't look complete if there is one missing piece, right? So everyone's contribution is so important. So this is another message that I would give.
Thanks, Liesbeth. Jo?
I would say that everyone has potential. It doesn't matter who you are, what background, what nationality, what education you've come from. We need to shift the conversation purely from performance to potential. Because I think if we understand the potential and the growth opportunities, that can have an extraordinary effect on the culture, the environment, but also the profit at the end of the day. So I would encourage people to think about potential over performance.
Thank you. Thanks, Jo. Thanks, everyone. And I think today's discussion has reinforced something that's becoming increasingly clear. Employee expectations aren't simply becoming higher, but they're becoming clearer. And we've definitely heard some of those. So people are still valuing competitive pay and rewarding careers, but also they're valuing purpose, they're valuing individual value, and also potential as well. So, and the organisations that understand those expectations won't simply become a better place to work, but they'll become stronger, more resilient, and ultimately more successful. And before you go, we have some resources for you. The first is our emmortization toolkit. We know that emmortization has shifted from being a well-meaning policy intention into a strictly enforced business requirement. So we want to make sure that we support businesses in the region to get it right and have it embedded into their talent management approach rather than just a bolt-on, and that will ensure longevity and being embedded part of the wider strategy. So please follow the QR code and download your copy. And if you've enjoyed the session today and would like to keep the conversation going, please do join our WhatsApp groups just to keep up to date with our latest news, events, resources, but also to keep on that conversation and be part of it. And again, we'll be sharing those after the session as well if you'd like to join those. And finally, if you've realised that you've needed support from the conversation today, Jo has kindly offered to provide free 30-minute slots to discuss and support you with any talent management initiatives that you have at the moment. But finally, I'd like to say a huge thank you to Jo, Liesbeth and Louise for sharing their experiences and insight today, and thank you to everyone who has joined us. We hope that the discussion has given you some practical ideas, some fresh perspectives, and that you can take back into your organisations and put into practice straight away. So there's nothing left for me to say than to enjoy the rest of your day and your evening, and we look forward to welcoming you onto one of our sessions very, very soon.
Jimma, which QR code do you want? And we can share it with you.
I'll go back to the WhatsApp group just in case.
You want to drop us a message either, we can do that. It's not a problem.
Sorry.
Okay.
There we go.
It's a good one. It's a good one, Gemma.
It's a great tool, and look, if there's anything you want more information on in that toolkit, then please do reach out. We can definitely have a discussion about that as well.
Brilliant. Thanks, Craig.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Louise. Thanks, Liesbeth. See you soon.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks,
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.